isn't it awesome to be in person? So we started in January doing hybrid with this program because we want to see you face to face, and we know some people still prefer virtual, but ultimately we are a research center, and this is mostly where our research takes place. So whether you're enrolled in our research or you are a participant or patient here at the Emory Brain Health Center, we want to welcome you all and thank you for being here. Since March of 2020, we've been hosting BrainTalk Live, where we feature a variety of health topics, rotating health topics. They can range from anything. Just last week, we talked about Medicare and Medicaid enrollment. Today, you're going to hear from an occupational therapist. And then 2 weeks before, we had our psychiatrist, Dr. Odie Dunlop, to talk about the connection between memory loss and cognition. So if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you are strongly encouraged. You don't have to be tech savvy or anything like that. You can just Google YouTube and Emory Brain Health and our channel will come up. But if you want to be notified about those uploaded videos, you need to subscribe to the channel. But we record every session and they're uploaded to the YouTube channel. So if you feel like you missed something, or we went too fast, or you didn't catch a phrase or something, you can always go back online and review the videos and have a replay. So in the past, we've always began with exercise, but we may end with exercise today if we have time. We wanted to really dive into some content today and clarify any questions you may have about our center, about our research. If you're enrolled, if you're not enrolled, if you had a question about, our most frequently asked question is, what's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Yeah. So without further ado, I want to welcome Dr. Monica Parker. She's the director of our Outreach, Recruitment, and Engagement Core, and also our Minority Engagement Core. So to our virtual audience, I see we already have about 87 online. Thank you all too for joining. You can use the Q&A function or the chat function. We have Deja and Crystal and myself here. If you post anything, we will read it aloud and be able to address those questions. But then to our live audience, who we love as much, but they're here in person, so we get to see them face to face. They're getting the opportunity to enjoy some refreshments today, so we appreciate again for them being here. All right, so with that said, let's welcome Dr. Parker with a round of applause.
Mrs. Dorbin is absolutely the best wing person you could ever have. We make a pretty good team up here. So thank you all to those of you who are here in person, and thank you to those of you who are online joining us virtually. We've got, you don't want me to do back FAQs, right? Or no?
If you want, because we have a little time.
Okay, well, I'll start with some of the basics for Alzheimer's, and then we'll move right into Ms. Burke's presentation. What is the difference between Alzheimer's? What is Alzheimer's and what is dementia? And for those of us who are assembled, we're all here trying to preserve our brain function, right? We're all trying to make sure that we function as independently as we can for as long as we can. And one of the things that we've been learning over time is that the things we do every single day have an effect on how long our brain is going to last and how functional it's going to be. And to make our brain as functional as it can be, there are certain basic things that we all have to do. We have to exercise regularly. If you haven't learned that yet, you're going to. That's why we do John all the time. But we need 150 minutes of aerobic exercise every week just to keep blood pumping and get blood flow to the brain going. We have to maintain an ideal body weight, or as close to that as we can, because that's important for longevity. And that's also important for good health and staving off things like hypertension and diabetes. Because when you get hypertension and diabetes, those are key risk factors for developing cognitive problems or trouble with the way your brain works. And mainly that comes because when you are morbidly overweight, when you develop hypertension, when you develop diabetes and high cholesterol, you generally have problems with blood pressure. Blood pressure and all of those things I just mentioned are risk factors for strokes. Strokes are preventable. but they're a leading cause of cognitive dysfunction and brain dysfunction. So we want you to do that. So preventive health is what we like to advocate in aging well and keeping your brain here. So paying attention to things like getting your immunizations so that you don't get sick. Two of my friends here in the audience went to the dentist today, keeping up our oral health, maintaining good oral hygiene. Why? Because oral infections, dental infections can seed the brain. And you can develop meningitis and other systemic central nervous system infection simply by having poor oral health. So oral health is a part of keeping your brain in check. Other things that we need to do, sleeping. We don't pay attention to sleep. And yes, some of us suffer from sleep apnea, but there are other things that disrupt our sleep. But sleep is the way by which our brain kind of clears the things that we call amyloid that kind of fog up our brain. So getting adequate sleep is important. Other things that are important besides the sleep, besides the exercise, besides the oral health. Last week, we learned a lot about hearing, and many of us just completely disregard how important hearing is to good brain function. Well, that's the way you interpret the world. So if you've not gotten a hearing check or been anywhere to get your hearing checked, do that. You don't have to wait till you're 70 or 80 and can't use the hearing aid that you've been given. If you are someplace south of 60, you might need to get your hearing checked too. People who wear earbuds all the time are in a situation where they're having lots of loud noise, are likely to have hearing impairment, and hearing impairment is closely associated with brain dysfunction. So I'm talking about a lot of different things that have to do with good health as we age, but how does that fit in with brain health? Well, when we start thinking about dementia or cognitive dysfunction, I like to say brain disorganization, there are a lot of things that cause it. Alzheimer's is the one that's most commonly diagnosed, followed by something that has to do with vascular, that's the stroke that I'm talking about. There's something called frontotemporal dementia, there's Lewy body dementia, there is dementia that's associated with Parkinson's disease, there's dementia that's associated with an untreated, unmanaged HIV infection, there's a dementia that's associated with chronic traumatic encephalopathy. People who've had lots of head injuries will develop a certain amount of cognitive dysfunction. So all of those result in a type of dementia. Alzheimer's is one of the many different types of dementia that one can develop. And some of them are preventable and some of them are not. The leading risk factors for developing Alzheimer's dementia is age, followed by gender. Females are more likely to have Alzheimer's when compared to men. And genetics. Yes, there are some aspects of Alzheimer's that are inherited from a parent, and some of that is passed from one person to another. But what we're learning in research is just because you carry the gene doesn't mean that you actually develop the disease. Things like we learned a couple of weeks ago in the exposome, things in the environment have to turn these genes on and make them operational so that they work to cause disability. So just because you inherited the gene doesn't mean that you necessarily develop the disease. And that's what we're learning in research. And that's why we are on a mission to get as many of you engaged in clinical research as we possibly can. Not so much because it's going to benefit us directly, but because as the world turns, if you will, we're going to need more access to treatments that make it less likely that people develop dementia, and more importantly, have to be institutionalized because they can't be cared for at home anymore or independently. So we want you involved in research. We want your brain functional. We want your body functional so that you can be as independent for as long as you can be, taking care of yourself under your own steam. So today we're going to hear from Ms. Maureen Burke, who's an occupational therapist, about how to make life a little easier for those of us who are aging. I like to say, well, and help us communicate with some of us who may have some cognitive impairment. So as this program goes along, as we've done before, if you have questions, put them in the chat. For the audience that's here in front of me, write them down. So at this time, I'd like to bring Ms. Burke forward.
What did you do to your hand?
Well, first question, so we're talking about falls and home safety. I didn't fall. I was walking our new dog, who's a little chubby bulldog kind of mix. He's about 55 pounds. And I was messing around with my phone and trying to get my jacket off and was holding his, wasn't his fault, he was holding the leash just with 2 fingers, and he jerked to get something in the bush and broke just a little part of one of my fingers. So not too bad, but they fixed me up good in surgery last Friday over at the Musculoskeletal Institute. So I'm in good hands over there. So, but anyways, glad to be here. And I'm going to kind of start with talking a little bit about what an occupational therapist is. Do any of you in the live audience know? I know you guys do, but anyone familiar with that term?
What?
Occupational therapist.
Yes.
Okay, good. There's good. A few of us know. It's we're often I have often been called many different names during my 3 decades or so of practice, primarily physical therapist, sometimes a nurse, sometimes a teacher, but an occupational therapist is part of the rehabilitation team. So we're basically on par with the speech language pathologist and also the physical therapist. Our educational programs are similar. They're all kind of moving into that doctorate level, initially had been master's levels. It's a science-based profession. So we learn about the healthy human body, study interventions and implement changes to keep people independent, whatever that medical event that may have happened to them may be, including traumatic brain injury, different sorts of brain issues, these kinds of issues, hip fractures, that sort of thing. So we treat people all along the entire lifespan. So you'll see an occupational therapist may be in the NICU taking care of a preemie with positioning and learning how to suck. There are many therapists that work in the school systems. Yes, that's a large sector. I've pretty much been with adults and later adulthood through my career in rehabilitation. And now I work across the street at the Cognitive Empowerment Program. So we treat different kinds of neurological disorders, as I mentioned, to improve what we call this term ADLs, which is activities of daily living. We all did our activities of daily living this morning, just by getting out of bed, walking to the bathroom, going to the bathroom, brushing your teeth, getting dressed, taking a shower, making your coffee. Those are what we consider activities of daily living. And our goal as occupational therapists is try to retain those skills no matter what the disability, for as long as possible, and to offer solutions for modifications if those tasks become difficult to do. So this is the most difficult part of my job as I reflect back. A little lady just like this saying that I want to go home. And she couldn't go home because her family was unable to take her home because of the types of disabilities that she had and her, for no other word, her poor performance in rehab. And so that is the most dreaded discharge, when the team, the doctors, the nurses, the family, the person who's been working hard in therapy all meet in a room and say, this is where you're at. The physical therapist may say, they're not able to walk, they're not able to do stairs, whatever the issue may be. We all give our blurb, and then the person is served with kind of that option that they don't want to hear, that they need to go to a nursing home for long-term placement. And so those experiences, those sad experiences for families and their loved ones, I just really decided that I need to try to be a little more proactive and start trying to improve the safety of all of you who are here and capable and able to make decisions to improve the safeties in your home and the safety of your body. So I teach about things like fall prevention and manageable ways to improve your quality of life. And I work with the people over at Georgia Tech as well, and we're working on trying to figure out the best home designs for people who have dementia and mild cognitive impairment, because that's a little bit different than just a well elder who has perhaps broken an elbow and is being discharged home. So my theme, my personal career phrase is how to age in place with grace. So that's what I want to talk about. Falls in aging, simple adjustments that you can make to your home. I want you to know the risk factors, because there are a lot of risk factors, and we're going to go through them next. And so if you hear any of them, open your ears up, because that's really important. If there's one risk factor, that's important to know. We'll talk about the grim facts that the CDC tells us about falls and injuries. We're going to zero in on 3 danger zones within your home, and talk about what you can do in each of those areas. And then a lot of equipment and devices that I'll show you. Anybody remember this? Yes, I think most of us are old enough to remember, well, maybe not all of us, but most of us, the Dick Van Dyke Show opened up with him tripping over the same footstool there every single time the episode started, right? And he didn't have an occupational therapist coming in and saying, hey, Dick, let's move this to the other side of the room so you don't keep falling. But it was funny, but it's really not funny. We know that when someone really falls and gets hurt. So the Journal of Orthopedic Surgery did a study last year, and they wanted to find out what injuries are causing hospitalizations for people over the age of 65. And what they found was that if an injury was related to a person in a fall, then they're 5 times more likely to be put in a hospital. They looked at a lot of different studies across the world. The United States is number 2 as far as the highest fall rates across the world, according to that same study. India wins that, not a great thing to win, but at 53%. And then China with 26%, and Japan, as you see, with about 13% fall rate. So it is a global issue. So now let's talk about who's at risk for falling. Unfortunately, age is a factor. So the older we get, the more a higher risk we are. 1 in 4 adults 65 and older have fallen. Women tend to report falls more often than men do. And this last one is really critical. Falling with an injury increases your risk of dying from a fall-related injury. So we don't want you to fall and get hurt. We don't want you to fall at all, but we especially don't want you to get hurt. The diagnosis of dementia in itself is a risk factor. So if a person has that diagnosis, they are automatically put in kind of a different pool, a higher risk category. And the consensus is that people over 65 who have that diagnosis of dementia are 2 to 3 times more likely to fall than their cognitively intact counterparts. And 60 to 80% of people with dementia do fall routinely, annually. There's still a lot of discussion as to why that is. There obviously it could be lower body strength, it could be balance, it could be vision, it could be hearing, it could be a lot of risk factors. But my thought, and again, this is still being discussed among researchers, is that there's also something connected with the judgment, the decision-making process, the problem solving, and the memory, right? So if you trip in one place in the home, you're going to say, whoa, I'm going to be really careful every time I go up that first step because I know I tripped and I fell that time. But someone who has memory issues may not automatically remember that's a trip location. Mild cognitive impairment is not a risk factor. This is a pretty grim statistic here, but I needed to show you this. This is from the CDC. As you see, they're reporting 7 deaths every hour by 2030 that are caused by a fall. And this graph is going up, of course, because of the baby boomers, but it's also because more older adults are falling and getting hurt. The price tag to Medicare and Medicaid is high, at about $50 billion a year to take care of all these folks who are falling and getting injured. Some of the most common injuries that we see tend to be hip fractures, pelvic fractures, spine fractures, shoulders, and also elbows, not fingers. Also, traumatic brain injuries are often in that mix as well. So these types of things can cause a person not to be able to rehabilitate, to be able to get home to the same level that they were at. And as you imagine, it's a huge psychological and emotional load, not only for the person who's going through this, right, and suffering and dealing with this disability, but also for their loved ones. So Dr. Parker already covered this part, but 150 minutes a week of aerobic exercise is really good for our brains and for our heart. So we want to make sure you're getting out there, maybe just taking a walk with a friend in the neighborhood. There's great benefits of being outside. And also Tai Chi, if anyone is interested in doing Tai Chi, there are a lot of research studies that show the benefits of balance improvement with Tai Chi. And silver sneakers, among other programs, are available at gyms, usually through Medicare. Will pay for you to go to these programs. And silver sneakers, I know they have one at LA Fitness, but at certain locations. So they do weight training and they have a chair there. So if anyone is concerned that they can't stand and do the exercises, they sit and lift weights and work on balance and core strength and that sort of thing. They're really a great class. The good news is we can reduce your chances of falling and being hurt. And that's what we're going to talk about. I mean, a lot of these factors are within your control. So we're going to talk about them, basically what the factors are. We're going to go one by one through those, what your risk factors are first. And then we're going to move into those danger zones within your house. Number one, risk of falling involves medications. A lot of us need to take various medications, and you know the big list of information they give you at the drugstore, that's so many possible side effects, right? And sometimes it's just not one medication, but it could be the interaction of different medications. So if you're noticing any symptoms of dizziness or balance or ringing in your ears or vision change, any symptom that feels different to you, make sure you talk to your doctor about that. The pharmacist is also a really good person to consult because they are excellent at giving answers to those questions. Unfortunately, just being 65 or older is a risk factor. So we're kind of in good company here. George Clooney looks pretty healthy there, so does Oprah. But there's also the fear of falling. So that is actually considered a risk factor. So if someone is hesitant in their movements, afraid of falling, that in itself is a risk factor. Having a previous fall adds to the list, and having low vitamin D. Low vision is also a contributor. So make sure you're wearing your glasses if you have been prescribed them, and try to get your eyes checked every year. And hearing, as Dr. Parker mentioned, hearing is also a factor. If we don't have all of our senses working, we can't really take in all the information that we need to within our environment. Pain is also a big factor. When someone has pain wherever it is in the body, it kind of changes the way they move, it changes the way they function biomechanically, and that could cause a fall. And also numbness in the feet, which is sometimes associated with things like diabetes. So just to be aware of that. And we see a lot of these ads on TV, right, all the time, the different types, it depends. It's because this is a big issue for older adults, having urgency and incontinence, and the idea of running to the bathroom so you don't mess yourself is a cause for unintended falls. So if you do have a problem with incontinence, please talk to your doctor or nurse practitioner. There are things that they could do to help. And also being sad and worried. So having depressive features, feeling worried all the time, feeling isolated or being isolated are also risk factors. So please ask for help. The lower body weakness, which you may assume, your legs are weak, your glutes, your hamstrings, also ankle, foot, and balance problems. So it could be weakness, or it could be the lack of mobility or range of motion of those joints that could cause you to fall. If you do have this, call your doctor and nurse practitioner and ask if you could go to physical therapy, because they may be able to help you with that. This is one of the tests that we've done in the clinic. So it's a 30-second chair test, and you guys could practice this at home if you wanted to. We have a client sit in a chair without armrest, and we put the timer on for 30 seconds, and we say, okay, now we'd like you to rise and sit and rise and sit and rise and sit. And we count how many repetitions they do within that 30 seconds. And then we'll know, depending on their age and their gender, if they fall within a fall risk category. And as you can hear, a man who can do 14 at the age of 60 to 64 is okay, but if he's doing 13 or 12, then he is flagged to be a fall risk. And then we would surely see him in therapy, and physical therapy would work on improving his muscle strength. Another risk factor is having any sort of difficulty with performing personal care or self-care. So that includes things like showering, dressing, even just getting the shoes on, cleaning yourself properly after toileting, thoroughly being able to bathe oneself, and also grooming are also risk factors. And you can imagine why this is a risk factor, right? This is what we call an environmental concern. So we don't want to have a lot of junk around the house that we can trip on. And that includes pet toys and animals and newspapers and laundry and all kinds of things. So we want to at least have a clear, safe path. So, and the last one is wearing shoes. It is important to wear shoes. Footwear that covers your foot, that has a nice supportive sole, and a non-slip bottom is what we recommend. There is diabetic footwear that your physician could order, and that is usually covered by insurance. So do you think these are a safe option? Oh, I see no shaking that. That's right. They're not. They might be really cute, but no, they don't really cut it. They're loose on the foot and they're slippery on the bottom. So not a good option. This one's a little trickier. This one is safe. And it's tricky because the whole foot isn't covered, but it checks the boxes. So it has the non-slip sole. It has the heel support, the strap in the back of the heel. It has the forefoot and the ankle support strapping too. So these are okay. And Crocs are a yes. I was always a little on the fence for a lot of my career as to whether I was in the Croc group or not. So as it turns out, I've had a lot of people over the years who have swollen legs for various medical problems. They can't access their feet by bending over. It's very difficult for them with breathing issues and so forth, and they opt for Crocs. And so I've changed my tune on that. And I think especially if the strap is attached to the back around the heel, it's an okay option if there is no other option that's reasonable and available. Sometimes people live alone and that's the best they can do. And so it's a much better option than going barefoot. Okay, now here we are for our trivia questions. Where are the most common places within our homes that we fall and end up in the emergency room? Right. All the above. The bathroom, the stairs, and the bedroom, and basically in that order. So the bathroom is the most dangerous place for us. Hard surfaces, slippery, take our glasses off when we're showering, bathing, all that kind of stuff, right? So, and then followed by the stairs and followed by the bedroom. So we're going to go room by room now and just give you some tips on what you can do to improve the safety of each of those risk zones. And a little bit of a change can make a really big difference. For example, if a toilet is just a little too low, we could elevate that toilet up just a few inches, and that would allow a person to be able to stand and perform their toileting independently. So it also will allow a client to regain dignity and independence, but also lowering their risk for falling. First, I felt that it was my duty to tell you to be wary of those TV commercials that tell you everything will be wonderful in 24 hours when you get your bathroom fixed. That is not always the case. They will come in and they will put, usually another tub in, right? That looks beautiful. It is definitely beautiful. But for an older population, stepping over that into the tub is not a great idea because it requires balancing on one foot. And our tests in the clinic, we have people balance on one foot, and if they can balance for 30 seconds, there is no impaired balance. And then we do the other foot and hold it up for 30 seconds, no impaired balance. So you can try that at home if you're holding on to something and to see where you fall with that, well, where you stand with that. So this picture in particular shows a zero clearance entrance to a bathroom, to a shower. This is really what you want to see. So there's the tile, the flooring. So in effect, someone in a wheelchair could just roll right in there, spin around, and be able to navigate pretty well. I would adjust some of the things here, but like access to the items on the shelf are a little bit high. But in general, I want to show you that zero clearance entrance. The grab bar positioning is also key to the person. We do go to people's homes and mark the walls and show them where they should install them, always into a stud, but it's very different. So if someone is 6'4" versus 4'10", the grab bar placement is going to be different. And if there's two people using that shower, you may need two different sets of grab bars, one for the smaller person and one for the larger person. And also blocking walls, that's just a term I want you to remember. That's a term when you're tearing out everything and you basically have the walls blocked so that a grab bar can be placed anywhere in the shower at any time. So that's not usually done when you're just having a regular renovation. You'd want to look for someone who is an aging in place specialist, a contractor who has experience and that sort of thing. I do have my certification from that. It's from the National Association of Home Builders, but some contractors are around that also have that. And that's really your best bet because they are very clear and understand how your bathroom needs to flow. One little example I want to tell you, one of our clients in the Cognitive Empowerment Program about 3 years ago was renovating the bathroom for his wife. And this was just as I was starting with the program and he was 3/4 of the way through. And he asked me and one of my colleagues who's an architect at Georgia Tech, could you guys help me out? I want you to come and check out the house that I've renovated for my wife, who actually had mild cognitive impairment. And so went out to the house and unfortunately, it didn't go well. It was a beautiful bathroom, but he had designed this bathroom for his wife to use. But her dementia was in a current state that she had her internal maps of where she would go from her bedroom to her bathroom. And she went to her old bathroom and she didn't want to change her pattern. She liked her bathroom. She knew exactly where she placed her hands on a countertop. And so the whole beautiful new bathroom that he had created was not being used by his wife. There were also some other factors too, but that was the biggest one. So just keep that in mind. One of the things that we necessarily don't think about is stepping out of the shower or the bathtub. High risk right there. That is a very high risk for falls, okay? So we'll have our slip mats maybe in the shower and keep ourselves from slipping in there, or non-slip tiles, which if someone's renovating, I recommend just those non-slip tiles, not the nice marble slick ones. And so you might have to fight with the people at Floor and Decor, or whatever their new name is now, but non-slip. So they're really, you put your foot on it and it definitely feels non-slip. So you want a non-slip mat inside the tub, but also outside as you step your wet foot right out onto that tile or linoleum floor. That's very important. I particularly like this one up in the far right. That's a memory foam. It's heavy. It will stay in place. We really don't want any of those light cotton ones because you're just going to move around with your foot. And there we are with our Crocs again for people who need to use them. Sorry about this picture. It's a little blurry, but this is one of my favorite items because it's easy, it works really well, and it's inexpensive. It's for putting on the side of a bathtub for a person who needs to still step over into the tub. It's easy to install. This particular item is now being sold like at drugstores and varieties of this. You can find, Lowe's, Home Depot. So you just screw it on, tighten it up. It's very stable, and it just works really well. I had one client that actually took it with them on vacation, so because they were afraid what the hotels would be like. And so, yeah, it works really well. So for people who are a little hesitant about stepping over the tub, just want that little extra support, don't want to fall, this is a good idea, along with that non-slip mat on the inside and then a non-slip mat on the outside. Grab bars have really made a wonderful transition in my time as an occupational therapist from looking like an old hospital to really looking like something pretty beautiful that you wouldn't mind putting in your home. And I'm very happy that Moen and all the other creators of these things have finally realized that we'll use these things, but we don't want our home looking like a nursing home, right? And so they come in all different shapes, colors, designs to match whatever your decor is. And I think that's really important because sometimes they really just look like a towel rack. They give you a little bit of balance, security, comfort. Mostly people use them in the bathroom, but not always. I have several clients who use them just as a little step up to get from their garage into their into their home. So there are a lot of places they can be used, different angles, and you might want someone to come in and kind of mark that for you. We usually look at how the person moves, how their motions are, where they naturally place their hands, and then make the marks accordingly. Oh, before we say no suction cups, just have to get that out there. Suction cups are good until they're not, okay? So let's not do that. This is one of my favorites. This is a relatively new to the market. This is an integrated toilet paper holder. And I'd be happy to put this in my guest bathroom. Nobody will know. They'll think, gee, that's an artistic, nice little toilet paper holder. But it is a grab bar and they are installed into the studs. Okay, now we're going to move over to shower chairs and shower benches. Should someone need to sit when they're bathing, not because they have to, but because it's more comfortable and they can enjoy the process that much more. So usually if there's a little bit of balance issues, vision problems, numbness, weakness, or when these are indicated, you want to make sure they're the right height. So you want to get one that has adjustable legs. Most of them are, but not all of them. So some of the nice, cute teak ones are way too low. And so you can't adjust them again according to the height. So they have little buttons on them and you just press the buttons and bring them up to where you need them to be. Back support is also very nice for these. And seat drainage, again, this lower item, the one that's without the armrests, those are also sold at like CVS and Walgreens and Walmart and places like that. This tub bench, you familiar with this one at all? Yes, okay. A tub bench is, it may not look pretty, but it is super functional and I love them because they have saved so many of my clients over the years. Number one, their ability to be independent, and number two, saving the family from having to do a huge renovation. I had a gentleman years ago, he was a young guy, and he had a really complex, terrible medical problem that happened with him. And so he had his legs amputated. One was below the knee and one was above the knee. Otherwise, he was strong, he was fine, and he was determined to be independent. So I took him into our bathroom at the clinic and said, look at this, you want to try this out and take a shower? And he's like, you bet. He put down the arm to his wheelchair, boom, he popped over, and he's like, I am good. And it's like, yep, you are good. Because now he is independent in being able to take care of himself. And it was wonderful. But this is also good for older adults. You don't want to do a renovation. They're very expensive. They're very messy. Put this in, the wheelchair goes up, the walker, or you just walk up and sit on the edge and you scoot over. So there's literally no balancing on one foot. Again, just a little bit of a closer look at that. They also do have some shower curtains that are designed for these that will help keep the water from splashing out. And stepping out of the shower, I think we already talked about that. Staple chair is a good idea for people to have in the bathroom to dry off so they don't have to stand right away. Towels, footwear, have everything kind of organized and right there within reach after the shower or bath. A couple items just for greater ease. A long sponge is good for some folks who have trouble reaching the back of the feet. Really bad arthritis may indicate a mitt of some sort because it's difficult to hold items. This little one right here with the small sponges is used to clean within the middle between the toes and also to dry between the toes and to add lotion. So that might be something of interest to you. Handheld showers, always helpful, especially if a person is assisting another person. Ergonomics, you want to make sure that the items that you're using, your body wash, your shampoo and conditioner is within reach. So we want it between your shoulders and your hips. So you can just easily reach, not behind you. We don't want turning. We don't want going down onto the floor to try to grab your stuff. We want it right there so you can grab it. And also I included these two different colored bottles because some of the people at the Cognitive Empowerment Program found was helpful to put their shampoos and conditioners in different colored bottles and then label them like with a big Sharpie that says shampoo, conditioner, or body wash. They found that it was easier because your glasses are off and you think about it, it's steamy. So sometimes it's hard to tell one bottle from another. Okay, ready to talk about toilets? All right. The falls do not occur when you're getting onto the toilet because it's a plop. Everybody can get on there, but it's getting up off the toilet that is usually the problem. And so this is another risk area, but this is easily corrected. And all you have to do is increase the height of the toilet or add a little bit of arm support, and then the person is able to rise with ease off of the toilet. So the standard, the ADA range is 17 to 19 inches. Base to bowl. And that's what you're going to find pretty much at Lowe's and Home Depot and those types of stores with their new low flow toilets. They're all about in that range. They're higher than the toilets that were sold 20 years ago, which are more like 15 inches. So if you have a lower toilet, you may need an adaptation to bring it up a little. Or you may still need that even with the higher toilet. This is just an example. Again, it's not necessarily a beautiful looking item, but it's very functional. And it has the arm supports, it has the lower legs that can be adjusted. It's called a 3-in-1, but I'm going to show you a picture that actually what Medicare will cover. And that's this one up in the far right corner, the gray one. Usually when people are discharged from rehab and from hospitals, they'll allow you one walking device. So the doctor will either say, okay, you'll qualify for a wheelchair, a cane, or a walker. And you pick which one. So if our client needs a wheelchair and a walker, we say, tell them you'll take the wheelchair and then you can buy a walker for $30 on your own, right? And they'll also give this, which is considered a 3-in-1 commode. So Medicare believes that this can be used 3 different ways. So put it to the bedside with a bucket and someone could toilet there if they were very immobile. Take the bucket off and place the frame over the top of the toilet, and then they could get the additional height. Thirdly, which I always have a little bit of an issue with this, someone's having trouble, they're going to carry that over to the shower and place it in, but that's what Medicare believes, that could also be used in the shower, which it could be, but it's not actually the ideal. But that's a 3-in-1 commode, and that's what they will cover. There are some other varieties here that you could add on, different types of bars, and I just included a few options. This is a bidet, and bidets are becoming more popular. I kind of like the way this one, just the design of it, it's high. I like the grab bar placement, so I wanted to show you that. Of course, that person has really good strength in their right arm, right? Because that's where the bar is. So bidets have becoming increasing popular, I would say, around COVID, like the whole toilet paper shortage. A little before then with people in rehab, but it's an option. I've had clients who do not have good function of their arms and hands, but they can walk and maneuver. And so it's helpful for them. One of my clients was selling it to one of her counterparts who was also in rehab, and that woman was relatively large and she had trouble cleaning herself. And so she said, I'm going to get one. So she wrote back to me after she discharged to home and said, it's wonderful. I am so glad I decided to get the bidet. So these are attachments that can be put onto your toilet. Some are really fancy, some are simple. So the electric ones will give you hot water, warm water, and so you have to have the electrical part done. Non-electric is cool water for cleaning. And a lot of clients say it's not bad. It seems like it would be bad because it's cold water, but it's really not. It seems to be okay. So that's an option. My brother, who was married to a woman from Japan, when he was renovating his bathroom, decided they were going to get a Toto, which is the Japanese version of bidets, right? And so for months, he told us about his new thing that he had in his bathroom. And this thing had a blower on it. It would blow low, medium, high, extra high, cool, medium, hot. He even had the seat was actually heated. So he's very proud of his Toto bidet. Okay, so now we're going to switch over. Third zone, right? The third danger zone. So we've talked about the 2 areas in the bathroom. Now we're going to talk about stairs. I put on this slide because this is it's a pretty scary looking staircase to me. All dark stairs, hard to see, no railings, right? So let's move on and look at what's a little bit better. So this one particular has railings on both sides. So handrails are recommended on both sides. We like to see the railings extend beyond the last step because that's where the most falls occur, is that final step on the descent. So that's why we want that additional railing there. And also we would like it to be extended on the upper area as well, if possible, until the person is fully on the top of the stairs and walking on a flat surface. Sometimes we recommend those with dementia. It helps if there are use a color coding system. So maybe orange or maybe yellow, just a little strip perhaps on the edge of the step so they can see where the edge is. And also at the bottom of the step at times, knowing that's the highest risk. And if there's not a railing to extend beyond, to have a bright colored rug that's going to boom, give them that visual cue that, oh yeah, there it is. And they step onto that rug. You'd want to stay away from those darker colors, maybe blue, black. It's going to look like a hole, or if it's dark colors mixed, again, it's going to be too visually confusing. So you want those bright, bold colors. You could do polka dots or something. We need some lighting on the stairs, so we got to brighten things up. Ideally, it would be nice to have a switch at the bottom of the staircase, a switch at the top of the staircase. That's great if you have that. If not, if you can put that in, that's great. But for the clients that I work with who have cognitive decline, I really like more of the automatic. So I like the motion sensor lighting. So they'll just walk up and the lights will automatically come on. They could be in the hallway on their path to the bathroom, could be going up the stairs. They're battery operated type things. They could just stick onto your wall. So they seem to work pretty well. This is an example of what they look like. You can find them anywhere, on Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's, indoor, outdoor. They're very easy to install. The one thing you may just be mindful of is the bright white light is good for stairs. But if it's a pathway going from your bedroom to your toilet at night, you may want to get the ones that have a more yellow tone to it. That's a little less disruptive to your sleep cycle. So I guess we want to make sure that all the clutter is moved away from the stairs, like the picture that we saw earlier, right? All the newspapers, all the junk on the stairs has to go. We want to wear supportive shoes that are non-slip. We want those railings on both sides if possible, bright overhead lighting, motion activated lighting on the stairs, and then of course repair any broken steps or carpeting that may be there. This is an option for adding a contrasting edge. One of our clients actually put this on her back deck. She learned the hard way. She broke her ankle as she was going down her dark stained deck and twisted her ankle. So she, on her own, decided, I'm just going to paint that little bit of white on each of the steps. So this is an example for low vision also. So that works pretty well. There's also some resistive pads. If you have a very slippery staircase with maybe a high gloss paint or tile, something like this could maybe help give a little bit of more support on the stairs. I love this picture. I love the simplicity of this railing. It's just perfect for this location. It's somebody on the internet from somewhere. I can't tell you who they are or who put it in. But as you can see, they selected the railing starts beyond that first step in the bottom, right? Goes all the way up. It's up at the top. So when the person reaches the top level, they still have a good handle on it. And the color is red, which is also a good color for aging eyes because we see that side of the spectrum a little bit better as we age. This client had trouble with her husband actually tripped stepping up just that one step to get onto their front porch. She was a member of the CEP program. And so we found this that coordinates really beautiful with her beautiful home. And she has one on either side for him. And she feels so much better. And so does he. He hasn't tripped. It was easy. This was from Amazon. The hardest thing I think was finding a contractor to install it, really. The next danger zone is number 3 is the bedroom. And that could be for a number of reasons, maybe getting up at night without having any lighting or maybe not proper footwear. It could also have to do with the bed height or the ability to move around. We call that bed mobility, to be able to roll and maneuver and sit up on the edge of the bed to get your legs in and out of bed. Or it could be accessibility to the items that you need. Or it could be that trip hazard thing, just having shoes or cluttered that kind of block the person. A bed bar offers stability and security, could hold your books too. The only problem with the way this one is set up, it shouldn't be here. The bar should actually be closer to where the pillows are. So you want to be able to hold it. It's positioned here in the picture. It's going to interfere with your legs getting out of bed. But this is a nice option. It's easy install. It just goes in between the mattress and the box spring. And this is just another option, a standard pole, a floor to ceiling bar is what it's called. And it's good for any location. You have to have a solid ceiling, so no drop ceilings. 9 feet, I believe, is their limit on the height of that. And my sister and brother-in-law, who do not do any handyman things around the house at all. They don't even hang pictures on the wall. I ordered one for my mom. They went over to the house and they were able to install it, and they said it was really easy. So it's really just, it's putting the pieces together and then screwing them together and tightening it up to however tight you want it to be. So works really well. And then other ideas just for bedroom access and organization. You want to make sure the lights are accessible, like the bedside table light, so the person can easily, you can reach it where you don't have to do too much of that. You could use a reacher. You know what a reacher is? A picker-upper. Yeah, people call it a picker-upper. Yeah, that's helpful to be able to reach things that are placed higher. So you want to put lighter items up higher, heavier items down low. But again, that same concept, things that you need to reach between your hips and your shoulders is ideal. And I just wanted to touch on a couple of studies that show how just one home safety visit with an occupational therapist reduces falls. So we'll just take a quick look at those. So there was one that was done in Hong Kong, China, where they had over 360 people that were brought to the emergency department with an injury related to a fall. And they sent them home. One of the groups they were just sent home. The other group was assigned a gerontologist and one OT visit. And they found at the end, within 6 months, actually they did it 12 months, they found that the people who had that service provided to them had about a 30% reduction in their falls. So maybe we can't prevent all falls, but we're helping the process. This study I thought was interesting that they found that they recommended a 6-month OT booster to go back into the home and just do kind of a little redo for them. And then as far as home changes, people were doing changes. So 33% to 83% of the recommended changes were actually made in the home, which I think is really, really great. And then there was this other study that took a group of women who were in a rehab center above 60 years old. They'd broken their hips. They went through the routine rehab, occupational physical therapy, and so forth. And then they divided them into groups when they went home. So one got that OT home visit 20 days post-discharge. The other group did not. And again, what they found was, again, about a 30% or more less falls among that group that had the OT who went to their home to make those changes. And so one OT visit can make a difference. And so if you're interested in having an occupational therapist come to your home, you do have to have a doctor's order. So you, or your practitioner, you would ask for an evaluation and treatment. That's usually the global term. It could be home safety assessment, but if you tell the OT that's what you need is, you know, to have a look at the home, or he look at the home to make sure it's safer, that's what they will do. So the doctor and insurance company will determine if you qualify. Medicare does cover these. You probably have to have some supporting diagnosis, and it doesn't need to be anything too drastic, like an acute hip injury or anything like that. So anyways, this is about the end here. And I just put a picture of these people because I hope that you're as happy as they are, because you've learned a few things, and you feel empowered, and you feel like you can make some difference in your own life. It's just some simple changes to keep you and your family safe. There's a group called FODAC, F-O-D-A-C. I just wanted to give a little plug in case some of you guys know about this. It's Friends of Disabled Adults and Children. It's located in Tucker, Georgia. And if you need different types of adaptive equipment, please contact them. They have refurbished items from electric wheelchairs, bed frames, technology. It is a wonderful source. So
And if you outgrow what you have, you can donate it to somebody else.
there you go. Yes. Yeah. So thank you. And I've included my email here. So if you have need to reach me, feel free to. And any questions? Yes, sir.
Can you tell me 2 questions?
Yes.
One, you said low vitamin D. Can you explain what it means, how vitamin D will affect the falling?
Yeah, it's related to your bone health.
Okay.
And so if you need vitamin D in your diet to have good bone health. So basically, That's why you would be more apt to get a fracture under that. Yeah.
Tell me about rugs.
Mhm.
Rugs. A lady came to my house and, well, not a lady, an OT came to my house. And and what you said about coming once was really important because the changes have helped in my house. But what she did is said, you have to move these rugs off.
The throw
because
rugs.
That you were slip on the rugs and go. So how are rugs involved in this?
Yeah, rugs can be a big slip hazard. And so it depends. And so when that OT looked at your home, she saw that those were rugs that were not stabilized, the edges were probably flipping up. And so you could catch the top of your foot as you walk through. And that's probably why the recommendation, or they were just slippery rugs that didn't have a secure backing. Sometimes the larger area rugs are okay, really big rugs that are stabilized by furniture. And then I'll recommend, depending on the situation, it's always a little different, but double-sided tape also can work to just hold those little spots that might flip up. But in general, that is a thing that we do recommend, is removing a lot of the programs. Yeah.
Renovation for my bedroom, for my living on the first floor, came with widening the doorway, just in case I had to go, become wheelchair needed. And then also, it was also for friends coming in. All my doorways were widened, so they could come through. And those grab bars are so nice. So getting up off the bathroom, it was part of the tile. So I appreciate that because I could pull up easier.
Yes.
We did get the highest commode because I'm tall. So
Yes,
anyway,
exactly.
it was just that. And grading the floor, I have a walk-in shower, but the floor is graded, so there's no ledge. Wheelchair could be rolled in.
Yes.
I can step in. It's been really helpful. I'm really pleased with the adjustments.
That's great. You may need to name share the name of your contractor for other people in case they would like to use that. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning the widening of the doorways too.
Oh, yes, because I had friends who needed a walker and I wanted them to be able to access my bedroom.
Yeah.
I mean, my bedroom, the bedroom and bathroom.
Right.
And so that was the plan ahead. The sources were like Home Depot, Lowe's, but my daughter and son-in-law did do all of the measuring. So it was that way. We didn't have a specific contractor except for tile, individual things like that.
Very good. Very good. Good to hear.
Presentation.
That's a good question. Talking about the kinds of bathroom renovations you have, all kinds of renovations that are advertised. What are the best surfaces if we're thinking about redoing our bathrooms? You have the fine tile, the highly glossy tiles, or is it the laminated tiles that we should be looking at as a flooring source?
So in general, a shiny surface, regardless if it is tile or wood, a reflective surface is not good. Okay, especially with people who have dementia or early onset, the reflectiveness is not good. So we want a flat surface. Generally, a lighter tone is better because again, that's easier to see. So the lighter shades, and then a non-slip tile. So a tile that is actually non-slip. And they have them. Wish I had some examples for you because you can feel the difference. You can also see the difference, very sheen versus, resistant.
Like that laminated wood looking like
That's
flooring?
okay. That's okay. Sure. Lighter tone, no shine. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
My question is about shoes.
Yes.
Okay, it's so comfortable to walk in socks. Okay, and it's comfortable walking in socks, and sometimes in shoes it seems uncomfortable. So I have a question about why you really can't wear, why you should wear shoes all the time. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, I will. And it's the friction factor, right? So if you have a, say a cotton sock or a mixed sock and it's on a slick floor, it's on a wood floor, it's the slip, there's a higher slip coefficient. is what the deal is. And so if you wore socks that have treads like they give you at the hospital, that would be okay. You just need some sort of resistance on your foot. And you do tend to slide more. The rubbery, anything with a solid base is, again, not going to have that same coefficient of friction.
They do make socks that are non-friction type socks. I wear them all the time because, like you, walking across tile floors, it slips. So I like going barefoot, but I put the socks with the grips on the bottom. And they don't hurt your feet or anything, but they're comfortable to walk in. So you can't find those.
I think we're good for time. So thank you so much, Ms. Burke. If you have questions, continue to put them in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you next Tuesday at 2. And next Tuesday is Trivia Tuesday because it's a holiday. So Trivia Tuesday next week.